allocates to us the right to water, but this cannot be read outside of Section 24, which is the right to a healthy environment, healthy and safe environment. Now, Chapter 7 of this Constitution, which establishes the local government, is also an important prescript, because it is through this that the responsibility of local municipalities is vested to protect and deliver these rights in accordance with Chapter 27 and Chapter 24. The questions are 25 years into this constitution, or this constitutional democracy. It seems for many South Africans that these rights are not delivered. South Africans are still living in perpetual states of woundedness, poverty, violence. We are the most unequal society in the world. We also know some of the reasons for the status quo. We know that in local municipalities, the issues, skills, incompetence, issues of fraud and corruption, maladministration, and most importantly perhaps is the lack of consequence management. People are not doing their work, but there is no management of the consequences. But I want to state that are just manifestations of the actual problem. The problem, in the main, is in two parts, and it has been expanded on by various thinkers. The main problem is a lack of a spiritual center. We have to come to terms that us Africans are perhaps the only people in the world who still struggle to do away with the colonial effects of the doing away of our own spiritual beliefs and the introduction of colonial forms of spiritual beliefs, and the interrelatedness of that with law and policy and society. So that is the one issue. The second issue is the psychological effects of colonial and apartheid oppression that we seem to undermine in the way that we think about public administration. Now, many people and many thinkers have elaborated on this psychological problem, with the so-called post-colony in particular. And at the main, the concern is the question of what happens to a people who were once enslaved when they then take up the seat of the former enslavers. I want to borrow from perhaps the most prominent thinker with regards to this, the psychiatrist Frantz Fanon, who spoke at length about this kind of condition that we find ourselves in. And it's important to lay this foundation of our hearing because it can help us understand what lays the root of the problems. So that as we understand and as we hear, this week we are going to hear a lot that will show us these problems at the level of the lack of capacity, the lack of skills, and blame shifting, and so forth. So it's important to set the foundation in understanding how the psyche works, even in the process of blame shifting. Now, Frantz Fanon speaks of a privileged proletariat. And this forms the new middle class that comes in the post-independence era. This privileged proletariat is greedy, it's intellectually lazy, it doesn't want to read, it prefers race over nation, it prefers tribe over the state, it's ignorant of the global economy and the actual potential resources, or the potential of the resources of the state. South Africa is one of the richest countries in terms of natural resources in the world. We own 97% of the world's platinum production. All of the platinum that is found in the world comes from South Africa. yet our leaders fail to guide and manage these resources in a way that serves the population. And this is what Frans Fanon is talking about. Under the leadership of this mentality, no industry is set up. The main concern becomes not to set up industry, but to be the neo-colonial intermediary of the colonial bourgeoisie. Now, understanding this context, or this psychological problem, the question is then, whose responsibility is it to change the status quo? I want to lead us back to the Constitution, because the Constitution in many ways foresaw this kind of challenge. And it sets up institutions, particularly in Chapter 9, who are then going to help to support this constitutional democracy. The South African Human Rights Commission is but one of these institutions, together with the Auditor General, the CGE, and other institutions. Our role is in supporting this constitutional democracy. Strong communities, community-based living has left us in exchange for a more individualistic approach to living. Now, the call to solve the problems is for us to rethink the way in which we relate with each other. And at the base of that is the notion of humanism, or what we as Africans call Ubuntu. Now, in order to get there, this process is called the process of decolonization, which is to do away with the psychological, material effects of colonialism. And that responsibility is the responsibility of not only institutions, but the communities themselves. Now, the idea of Ubuntu is the embodiment of a new world that we want to see. And this hearing sets up our wish and our thinking towards this new world that is embodied by a spirit of Ubuntu. It also means the disappearance of this dichotomy of black, white, rich, poor, urban, rural, colonizer, and the colonized. We cannot have a spirit of Ubuntu for as long as we have and live along these lines. This requires a radical reordering of our social structures and our social order. Now, the social theorists amongst us understand what it means when we talk about the radical restructuring of social order. You can't radically restructure social order without one understanding and observing what the current status quo of social order is. Once you do that, you then have an obligation to understand what social action is, how the people there act, why they act in that way. And you do that not only by looking at the material conditions, but you look at the immaterial conditions. And in the main, these are the psychological conditions, because it is from the psyche that we act and manifest our actions in the material. And through this radical reordering of society through observing the social order, observing social action, you then move to ask the question, what is required for social change? And it is impossible, once you have done this observation, to then continue to do the same thing that has been done and expect different results. So this understanding calls on us to rethink the way that we've been doing things in the past. And this then calls on the transformation, the radical transformation of the so-called native into an active, thinking subject who rises above the drama that others have staged for them. The reality is that this so-called native that was identified so by the colonial order is caught up in the drama of oppression, which in many parts is inherited. The spirit of humanism and the spirit of Ubuntu will transform radically this society. And what that means then is also that it calls on the recognition of these resources such as water being possibly the most important and scarce resources that it is. In fact, we have an abundance of water, but we have a problem with the management of this resource. And in addition to that, it then calls on us to understand our role in the global market and in global society. For as long as we are stagnant, for as long as our people cannot drink safe water, they are unable to self-actualize to become the best person that they were brought here on earth to be. And with that is the deprivation of the nation as a whole from participating in its optimum or to its optimum in the global marketplace. Now currently the global market is characterized by new technologies, distribution networks, entrepreneurial dynamics that are radically shifting, particularly in the era of COVID. We are moving towards green economies. What we as individuals are doing to change the status quo. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. If you check your programs, we are supposed to have Professor Emma Mujuru. I think we are still sorting that out, and we will then take Dr. Joshua Ekdokbai from the University of Venda to come to talk to us about the lack of clean drinking water in Limpopo. Section 27 of the Constitution, you heard Commissioner said it, the province is dry and we are thirsty. Dr. Joshua, please come to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to be here this morning. I think we had such a wonderful speech from the Commissioner, which has really set the tone for today's discourse. All protocols are duly observed. And I would like to give a disclaimer as I commence my presentation. What I'll be presenting is purely based on science, some of the work we have done within the province. It does not represent, the idea of the University of Venda as a whole from which I work, but it's just purely based on science. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I will be speaking on the lack of clean water, or if you permit me to paraphrase, I can say inadequate, okay, inadequate clean water in the province, section 27 of the Constitution. I'm a senior lecturer and a research scholar in the Department of Earth Sciences, but more in hydrology and water resources. I'm a member of the Water Institute of Southern Africa, also a member of South African Youth Academy of Science, and I'm also a rated researcher from the National Research Foundation, NIF. Okay, the next slide, please. So my presentation layout will just give you a brief background. The Constitution, I'm not going to say much on that. I think the Commissioner has done justice to that. Then I'll just give you a few evidences of inadequate supply of clean water to the populace. What are some of the things we need to think about as recommendations? Just as the Commissioner has said, we are to work together. We are not here to say, oh, you have the blame or I have the blame. We've been doing that for years. It has not taken us anywhere. So I think the mind is, let's come together. What can we do as a people? What can we do to better the state, of the challenges and the problem we see our people facing? Trying to blame many things will not really, give us the answer. But we brainstorming, thinking critically together will help us to be where we want to be. Then I'll give some acknowledgement, then references, and so. So for the background, all right. Now, access to clean and safe drinking water is very, very important because it influences the health of the people. We conducted a study around the Zimaori Valley. We are trying to see if the consumption of contaminated water can lead to cognitive derailment of children. Because there are a few epidemiological studies that have shown that when a child does have diarrhea, it does not only affect the child just, when he's a child. Even as the child grows, it affects his cognitive development. So we try to find out if that was true. So the supply of clean and safe drinking water to the community, to everyone, is very, very crucial. It's very, very important. Significant amount of time has been recorded to be spent by women and children, in search of drinking water. Most of the time when there's no water in the house, we the men, we find a way to just go out and be happy. But the mothers can't go out. They have to look for water. And because they have to look for water, in fact, statistics have it that they spend millions of hours. In fact, I'm just trying to be moderate. It is billions of hours annually in search of drinking water. Now, that time should have been used for other things. They could have used that time for their business. They could have used that time to take care, of the family. But because there's no water, and due to the importance of water, they have to spend, that time in search of drinking water. It is estimated that in developed countries, women and girls spend billions of hours in collecting water. For those that have water supply, unfortunately, the tap does not flow every day. So there's erratic supply of drinking water. And this also affects the hygiene or the hygienic properties or tendencies of the individual. I'm going to say more of this as I go on. The next slide, please. Clean water, like I said, it affects human health. Our children under the age of 5 dies every year. More than 5 million of children dies as a result of, drinking of contaminated water. So it affects human health. It affects livelihoods. I was just reading something yesterday and a guy said, I used to have a car wash. That is how I survive. But without water supply, my car wash business has to stop. My family had to starve because there's no money to provide for them. Another guy complained that he normally grew a little garden in his yard. Instead of buying all the food they need in the family, they grow tomatoes, they grow cabbage, they grow carrots. They are able to augment that, with their living condition. But if there's no water to irrigate those tomatoes, those carrots, those cabbage, then what happens? The livelihood of the people are affected. There are some women that they live by cooking for others. They cook for workers. But without water, it becomes very tricky. How do you cook pap without water? It's not possible. So these are some real-time challenges that people are facing. And of course, it affects sanitation. I must say sometimes in the University of Venda, we don't have water for like 4 days. So you can imagine a university with a population of over 20,000 people without water for 4 days. What is likely going to happen? In fact, the security officers, they are going to lock up the toilet, so that people don't mess around with it. Because it's really unfair to ask a cleaner, who is your father, your mother, your brother, your sister, or your uncle, to go and clear the trash. In fact, that affects his own human rights, if we want to put it the way it is. So if a university does not have water for 3 days, 4 days, then what about the people that live in the villages? Then it becomes really, really a challenge. So it affects sanitation, it affects everything, about us. And like our leader has said, water is life. What on earth is not water? Everything we do, economic development, everything is tied to water. So water is very, very important. The next slide, sir. Now, this gives a chart from Start SA to see how we're doing as a country. Now, you will see from these statistics that there's a bit of decline in water supply to the people. From 2012, 2002, you will see a bit of increase, isn't it? There's a little increase to a point of 90% or 91%. Unfortunately, that increase was not sustained. Over time, we start having a decrease. I'm not sure what the figure or the number is going to be now, because even some of us that live in peri-urban centers, like where I live, normally we have, you don't use your water tank. There is water every day. But these days, you may not have water for 3 or 4 days. So sometimes even all your storage, in the water tank is exhausted. Now I ask myself a question. If this is happening and I'm living maybe in the city, then what happens to those that are living in the rural areas? I start fidgeting when I can see now that my storage is, is empty. You know, so I had to go look for what? Design. Next, sir. Evidence from case study. So what I did was to quickly just create a questionnaire and just distribute to people in the province to see what is really going on. And I'm going to be substantiating some of the things I'm presenting here with some other research. Because I'm a water quality monitoring expert, so I do a lot of water quality work, and I must appreciate the municipality for giving me that hand of fellowship. You know, I mean, if they say no, I cannot, you know, I can't walk in to their vicinity. 2-3 years back, the Mopani district called us. We did a holistic test of their water quality, both the drinking water quality and the wastewater. And we gave some recommendations. I'm happy because some of those recommendations were taken seriously. I was surprised when I visited some of the wastewater treatment facility, and I can see that there is improvement, you know, in one area or the other. So I was very happy, you know, that all the time, the money, and the resources we spent, you know, doing those studies were not in vain. Yeah, we may not be 100% there, but at least it's a step in the right direction. You know, when a recommendation is made and you can see that people are working towards that actualization, I think it's something good and it's something commendable. Now, 309 people responded. No, I'm still speaking to that slide, sorry. 309 people responded to the questionnaire survey, and this is what we have. The blue tells us that they have municipal water in their village. Okay, so that's like 65% of the respondents says, oh, we have municipal water in our village. While about 34% said, we don't have municipal water in our village. This was just done last week. I mean, just last week. Yeah, so which, again, is worrying, isn't it? It's worrying to see that almost 1/3, you know, of the population of the study, of course, is the population is quite small, you know, but we could see, you know, what was really going on. Most of the population were students in the universities, you know, from University of Venda, University of Limpopo, and several other TVET colleges within the province. So we can see that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. I mean, some villages does not even have municipal water supply, which calls for a concern that we should think, how are they living? I mean, how are they going about their daily, you know, their daily chores, their daily life? Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Now, I discovered that when I look at the provincial outlook in 2018 from Start SA, I saw that what, you know, the questionnaire survey I got was not too different from what was reported by Start SA in 2018. So you can see the number of households that do have water, and you can see the number of households that does not have water. So you can see that, I mean, it's close. So it's like the story has not changed. So if this is what it was in 2018, and just a small pseudo study in 2021 is showing almost the same, then I think it calls for a more critical thinking to say, what are we not doing right? You know, what do we need to change? How do we need to, you know, how do we need to improve such that, you know, the people that really need this service delivery are getting it? Thank you. The next slide, please. All right. Now, this slide is now showing some villages that did not have access to water. Like Hamutoti village, they protested in July this year. I think it was on the news, because they don't have, you know, any form of water supply. The the community members, they had to even stop the work at Nandoni Dam and said, you know what, you are not going to supply water to anybody. I mean, you are getting this water from our community. Now you transport it to communities that are far apart while we don't have access, you know, to this water. I remember doing some work also around Lesitele area. The community member actually busted the municipal pipe. That you are taking this water from our mountain, that flows from our mountain, you are giving it to other people, and we that lives very close to the water treatment plant, we are not having the water. So they busted the pipe and they were fetching the water from the pipe. So I mean, it's a real problem, and I think something needs to be done. Now the people around Shungani, sorry, I can't see very well. Okay, Fulubodwe and you know other communities, they also complain because it is true they do have municipal community tap in the village, but they told me that sometimes for 4 weeks there is no water supply. So in fact they told me, see, we are as good as not having any water supply system. So don't say we have water supply. We don't have. Because if we have, and for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, our tap is not running, how can you say we have, you know, water supply system? So these are some of the problems that are happening, and many villages around Diani. I know. I mean, this has been in the news, you know, for some time. You know, many villages around Diani, such as Makosha, Homo, Moruga, and many others. Close to 50 villages, they don't have access to clean water. And like I said, one of them said, you know, I have a car wash, but I can no longer operate my car wash because there's no water. So these are real situation that is going on around, and I think we will need a more proactive way, you know, to really reach out to these people, because they are not they are really not so happy. They feel they are being deprived of their constitutional right. We protest the here. That is why we protest. Okay, that when we complain, we write letters, it's like nothing is going on. But when we burn tires, when we touch buildings, when we touch something, you know, they respond to us. So these are some of the reality, you know, that is on ground within the province. Next slide, sir. So a question was asked, now that you don't have water supply within your community, where do you get water? Okay, where do you get water? Now many of them agree that they get their water from private borehole. And of course, that's not free of charge, you know. They pay for it. Some will say they pay 3 rands per 25 liters. Okay, and a woman said we use 4 or 5 of that in a day. So you can imagine how much I spend every day, you know, just to get water. So I can't water my vegetables. I mean, I'm spending close to, you know, 30, 40 rands a day just to have water to drink. Why should I use a flushing system? I can't use a flushing system because I need water, you know, to have access to improve sanitation. So just allow me to keep using my pit latrine, you know, which in a way again, you know, affects the dignity and the human right, you know, of some of these people. Okay, some of them abstract water from the rivers directly and they drink it without any form of treatment. They drink water from the river. So these are real data we got just last week. Some do rainwater harvesting, but you can only do that when it's raining, isn't it? When it's like now we're in the rainy season, so they do rainwater harvesting. There are community boreholes, municipal community boreholes in some of these places, and credit must be given to the municipality for that. Some they get water from springs, you know, and other and other areas. So we say, oh, we have a delivery man. You know, he delivers the water to us and we pay them. Next, sir. Now, this was a study we did around 2008, 2009. We went to a community. This community, we have close to 12 to 15 villages. Okay, Shandama, Pire, Chapasha, Mashavawe, Rambuda, you know, all the villages around that community, Madadani and all of that. So we tried to sample their different water sources. Because as at that time when we conducted this study, municipal water runs in some of these villages for 2 or 3 days. Okay, during the wet season, when it's raining, the dam is full, so there is municipal water for 2 or 3 days, and they store water. You know, so when the municipal water is off, they use their stored water. But sometimes their stored water is finished, you know, before the municipal water is restored. So we try to just look at the quality of the different water they are using. As you can see, we have the E. coli. E. coli is just a fecal indicator organisms that indicate the presence of pathogenic organism. So meaning if you have E. coli in water, there is the possibility that some disease-causing microorganism is present in that water. So if you drink that water, you are likely going to fall sick. And there are other coliforms, you know, we just indicate the quality of the water. The truth is, from the municipal treated water, E. coli was not found. The water was good. Okay, E. coli was not found.
Dr. Joshua, can I give you some 5 minutes to wrap up?
Okay.
Because your time is, yes.
All right, I will try. 5 minutes.
5.
Okay. All right, I will try. Okay. So you see that now for most of the water, you know, they are contaminated. So definitely if they drink those secondary sources of water, I mean they are going to fall sick. Currently one of my students is working on vegetables irrigated with wastewater because since, you know, they can't use treated water and they don't have it within their yard, so some of them use wastewater to irrigate their vegetables like carrots, cabbage, and of course we had a lot of pathogenic organisms in those vegetables. Okay, let's move on because of time. Now this was done in another area where they rely on groundwater and the fluoride level is just so high. You know, normally according to the World Health Organization, the fluoride level should not be more than 1,5. But you can see we are having as high as 5, you know, 5.59, you know, in the water. So definitely drinking this kind of water, you are going to have what we call dental fluorosis, yellowing of teeth, or you can also have skeletal fluorosis. And this has actually been found in this community. Next, please. Yeah, so we carried out a study. No, go back to that nice picture. Yeah, we carried out a study where we drilled 2 monitoring boreholes. We wanted to use those boreholes for hydrological, you know, study. We want to test for recharge and some other stuff. And you can see someone from the village is already coming to get some drinking water, you know, from the research borehole we dug. Actually, we dug 2 research boreholes. We have to give the community one of them because they said, no, you cannot be doing study here and we don't have water. So we had to agree with them that, okay, but this water is not too okay. I mean, they say, see, let's have water first before you tell us whether it is okay, you know, or it is not okay. So we had to donate one of the boreholes to them, you know, for their use, while the other borehole we continue to use for our research purposes. Yeah, go on, sir. Okay, so we asked them to rate their water quality. What do they think? Is it good? Is it clean? You can see very few of them said it's excellent. Some of them said they think the water is good, but majority of them said the water they are drinking, they are using is bad, it's not good. Yes, move on, sir. the time it takes for them to get this water, so you can see majority of them says it takes them more than 1 hour. Okay, more than 1 hour to go fetch that water that they think is not good, but you know, they have to spend more than 1 hour to get the water. Next place. In the box. It is everywhere. In fact, the amount of money spent, the amount of water that is lost as a result of leakages, I mean, is just so much. You know, it's just so much, which shows that managing of the infrastructure, you know, is a problem. Let's just move on because of time.
Dr. Joshua,
Yeah.
allow me to stop you here so that we give time to our panel to ask more questions. I think, okay, Commissioner is recommending that I give you the last 2 minutes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So I'll go through them quickly. Number one is inclusion of groundwater as a major water source. I mean, we've come to a point where groundwater needs to be recognized as a major source of water. You know, in the province. I was in Eastern, I was in Pietermaritzburg one time, and you need to see what they did. I mean, they have very great groundwater resource that can supply the whole city, not from river, from groundwater, because groundwater is found almost everywhere. Now we can encourage rainwater harvesting. I saw that in Sekokune district, almost every houses, you know, they are connecting water into their tank. That is good, but we need to provide point of use water treatment device. Okay, harvesting rainwater is very good, but there need to be point of use water treatment device. I have a student, currently a master's student, that is working on that, and we're able to see some microorganisms, you know, here and there from harvested rainwater. So just a simple point of use point of use water treatment device would have solved the problem. All other parameters are fine except the microbial parameters. So with a point of use water treatment system, some of them cost less than 300 rands, and you can use them for 2 years. You know, that can really help that household to say the water I'm drinking is safe and I have no cause for alarm. Community initiative needs to be supported. In some of these villages, you will really see the community will buy pipes, they will connect water to, you know, they will abstract water from the mountain, but they need some kind of support. So if this community initiative are supported, it's really going to help. I remember last year, the people in Chakuma, you know, they had to look for another water source from the spring on the mountains themselves. You understand? So if we have community that are coming up with such initiative, I think it would be a great thing to, you know, to support them. Prioritize supply for those communities where the water is abstracted and transported to other communities. If you don't do that, they will keep destroying, you know, the infrastructure, then you spend more money. The next one, please. Okay, yeah, so these are more recommendations. I will share, you know, because of time, I will share the slide with as many as, you know, would want it. That's the guy, we went for a field walk. He's actually drinking water directly from the river. This is Limpopo river system, you know, in Masisi. So you can see the young guy is drinking water. Yeah, so thank you. Okay, so I think that is it. The next slide is just acknowledgement and yeah, so thank you.
Dr. Joshua, please take your seat for the panel to ask questions. Thank you very much.
Is that how I pronounce it?
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you, Doctor, for your brilliant presentation. May I ask that you switch on the lights now? Very informative, very useful. presentation, Dr. Quite obviously, we have a problem that is solvable if we work together. You began to touch on this idea of community-based solutions supporting communities, but you didn't expand, and I would like to give you the opportunity to just expand on those ideas. It's quite clear that we need to think outside of the box. We need innovative ideas. We need to be creative in the way that we think about solutions, which are there. We allow ourselves to go just further than what we have been doing. So the first one will just be to give you that opportunity, particularly in relation to our goal towards 2030, national and global goals. Some will take the more pessimistic approach and say that it's going to be impossible for us to get there, but it's useful to adopt a more optimistic approach and find ways, maybe just work back and say, if we are to get there, this is what we need, these are all of the resources, and seeing that this is what we need, how then do we move from here to get there and draw a clear process map therein. So I'd like to get an idea from you what that could look like, that could lead us towards that. If you could maybe just speak to that. You mentioned in your presentation there were two slides that particularly grabbed my attention. In the survey in particular, the one on the quality of water. Some said it was bad, some said it was good, some said it was excellent. I was curious to know if you know the demographics of the different respondents. In particular, I'd like to know who are those that think that the water is excellent in relation to those that think that the water is bad. Because that paints a particular picture. My suspicion is that those who think that the water is excellent might be the more elder people, but I could be wrong. So I'd like to get an indication from you if you have those demographics. It goes the same with the questions you asked about whether people think government is making enough of an effort. 91 said yes, 9% said no. Or what's the other way around?
Yeah, the other way around.
The other way around, yes. So just those demographics as well. Who are those that said yes? Who are those that said no? Because that also adds depth to the picture that you are painting. I also had some notes on the recommendations, but let me pause here. I just want to give the opportunity to my fellow panelists to also maybe speak with you. But before I hand over to them, could I get an indication from you if you prefer to just take my questions first, or if you'd like to take the host of questions from the panel?
Yeah, I think if I have a pen here, I can write them down, then I can respond to that. So I think I got a pen. I can use your stuff. Okay, so I can just write your question. The first one was on community initiative.
The 2030 projections, issues.
The other one was on demography.
Yes.
Okay, so I think I can take your own first, then others will follow.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I think when it comes to community initiative, there's what we call the indigenous knowledge system, and this community have always looked for a way to solve their problems. Before we have this formal system of government. So I think if we can have time, with this community, bring them to a place where they are safe, where they think what they will say will count, will be important in whatsoever policy one is trying to make. I believe they are sitting with a lot of knowledge. Like the one I said in Chakuma, it was the community leaders that said, there's a way our fathers used to have water. Let's go and get water through that way. So they went up to the mountains looking for springs. And at the end of the day, they were able to see springs that can, supply water to the whole community. So for people like that, what they need is just a little support. They may not have, the total science on how to transport the water or make the water clean, So if such community initiative is supported, then definitely water supply to that village has been solved. The government can focus on others because working together with the community, the problem has been solved. Because one of the problems the community leaders often say to us is that the government does not listen to us. They don't take, our own side of it. We tell them, no, we think this treatment plant should be here. But, they said, no, let's put it here. So at the end of the day, 2-3 years without having the support from the community, the stuff is vandalized. They are back to 0 point. Around Chapasha, Shandama area too, the community met together and said the municipal system is not giving us enough water we need. Then we're doing some work in connection with some funders from the University of Virginia. So they were ready to fund the work. So, but the community came up with the idea to say, we have water in the mountains. If you guys can help us with pipe and tank, then the water can be in that tank. Then we will know how to distribute it. That's not your problem now. Just help us get this water into the tank. Then distribution, safety of the system will take over. And we were able to do that, and for some time, they were able to maintain the system. At least the last time I visited, the system was still up and running. It's been a while now, so I've not visited. So I believe that the community do have, you cannot know a community more than the community. There could be other source of water in the community that we don't know of. I was surprised one time around Madadani, I visited a pristine environment. I've never seen that before. I only seen that in Cape Town. When I visited Cape Town, Cape Flat, that was when I see a pristine environment. And I was telling my students, we travel all the way to Cape Town to locate this. And it's just here. But we don't know. But as we interact with the community, they said, no, we have some water, all over the mountains there. It's clean, nobody's touching it. Can you go and see? And when we got there, the water was actually coming from the rock, because they have a fractured aquifer that have high storage of rainwater, and over time, the water just flows and recharge the surface water. So I really believe that if we can work very, very closely with the community, to a great extent, some of the challenges we are facing when it comes to water supply will be solved. Then on the issue of the demography, I believe people were able to judge the quality of the water based on the aesthetic property, not really on the real quality of the water, because there's really no way they will be able to measure that. So they want to look at, does the water have color? Does it have taste? Does it smell? Things like that. And that's a bit relative. Something that may be tasty to me may not be tasty to you. So I think that is why you have a very few percentage actually that says the water is excellent, and higher percentage says the water is not good. Then when it comes to whether the government is doing something or not, it depends on the village where you are. There are some villages that they can really see that, every week tankers are coming from the municipality, they are not paying, they are getting the water for free. While some other villages are not seeing that. So those from those villages that are not seeing that will say the government is doing nothing. But those that are seeing that will say, oh, you know what, at least the government is trying. They are supplying water, although it's not enough, but it's something. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your.
I'm not sure that it will sustain.
For a few minutes, but it's off again. Can I think
Yeah, can I?
it's gonna be
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Yes, I think you have covered some issues that we have also conduct some investigation. Hence I understand that you have come from the university where the Human Rights Commission. So in your opening remarks, you indicated that the time for blaming each other is over and all those things. What is the university view in terms of holding those who are responsible to provide water accountable to the community? What is your view as the university or as the doctor? What do you think should be done? Should we just hold our hands and say we can't blame anyone? It's a problem that will solve itself. We are all together on this. Let us not blame the government. Let us not blame anyone. We should just say it's our problem. So what is your view in regards to that?
Okay, thank you so much. I think I've got a loud voice.
Can I ask the second question?
Okay.
Yeah, the second question is with regard to the proposals that you have made. People going the mountain, trying to find springs in their areas, and all of them trying to do something for themselves. Hence, that the Human Rights Commission will support that there should be initiative from the communities to preserve water. We agree with you on that. But taking into account the crisis that you might have come across here in this province, do you think we have enough natural resources in our village that can be in the position to resolve the challenges that we are facing with regard to water shortages?
Thank you, Dr. Irapai. I just have a quick technical question, possibly. If fecal or total coliforms are above the accepted World Health Organization levels, whose responsibility is that to maintain those levels? And if you are at the top of your mind able to tell us what should a total or a fecal coliform level be that is acceptable for, let's say, a natural water resource such as a dam or a river, I'd really just appreciate that. Otherwise, you can just indicate that you'll be able to provide that information. That's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for those questions. Yeah, I believe that people should be held accountable for what they do, and that is why we have the police, that's why we have the courts, you know. So if people will not be held responsible, then everything will be chaotic. So people should be held responsible if they are not doing what they are supposed to do. Again, we have to, why I talk of working together is that we are living together in the same country, and we know the impact, you know, of like climate change, for example, impact of COVID-19, you know, on resources, you know, for example. So that gives us, even when we want to hold people accountable, we are not coming to like, you are not doing anything. You know, we are coming going through. You know, we really understand that things are not as easy the way it were, you know, 10 years ago. Please, can you improve, you know, what you are doing and give them some time. In fact, you can even bring them to a negotiation table that they agree on a timeline to say, okay, based on what is going on, by this time, we should have achieved this. Now, if they now contravene, they did not meet up to the gentleman agreement, then it becomes, you know, very, very clear. Just like you have a kid, you don't you don't punish the kid for every wrong the kid does. But there are some capital, stuff that the kid will do. You say, no, now you have gone above the bar. You have to sit down, need to talk sense, to you now. So it's something like that. I was talking about that. No, people should be held, accountable. I mean, I can't pass a student that failed. I mean, you should be accountable for your failure. You come back and do the course. If you fail again and do it again, so that you learn, how to work hard and do what you are supposed to do. Now, when it comes to natural resources, yeah, it is true, I mean, globally, that natural resources is not sufficient. The natural resources is not sufficient. But we can manage what we have to have an optimum result. The natural resources is not sufficient. In fact, the World Health Organization is saying in 2030 or even 2050, many countries are going to be water stressed. In fact, South Africa is already water stressed, and in 2050, I really wonder, what will happen. Maybe we need to step up, a desalination technique, although it's expensive, but it's doable. I mean, there are countries, that are using desalination method to treat water. And then we have the Indian Ocean. I mean, that's a lot of water. So if we can have desalination technique, then the issue of water scarcity wouldn't be a problem. But we have a lot of groundwater reserve in South Africa that have not been explored. There's a lot of groundwater reserve. Rainwater harvesting, like I said, instead of allowing the rain to fall, get to the ground, get contaminated, flow into the river, then you now try to treat and send to the people. I mean, at the catchment level, rainwater harvesting can be done. You can do rainwater harvesting, channel all the water to, a particular very small plant, and they receive minimal treatment, then that water can be, recycled back to the community for use. Now when it comes to, yes, for E. coli, it should be 0 in drinking water. Any water that people want to drink, E. coli should be 0. White total coliform should be less than 10. It should be less than 10. Yes, because total coliform just indicates that they are microorganisms which may be pathogenic or may not be pathogenic, but E. coli indicates that they are pathogenic organisms. But it's very difficult to maintain surface water at 10. It's not possible, because I mean there's a lot of runoff. During precipitation event or rainfall, there's runoff from agricultural farms, from everywhere, and all of this gets into the river. So we may not be able to maintain what it should be in the river, but what we are saying is you don't drink that water. Before you drink that water, the water should be treated. What some other countries have been able to do very well is that some of this runoff goes into the wastewater treatment system. But we can't afford that, because even the wastewater itself that comes from the sewers, we are really having problems to deal with that. Now, not to talk of adding runoff, to be part of the problem. We have wetlands, but because of lack of knowledge, like I would say, wetlands have been destroyed. These wetlands are natural buffers, in the environment that should take care of some of these levels of contaminants, so that when rain falls, it flows through a wetland before it gets to the river. So the wetland has actually treated that water. But I can tell you today that we have some malls that are built on wetland. The wetland has been excavated, and there are big malls that have been built on those wetlands. Then what do? In Mopani district, I remember one of their officers was telling us that, we tell our people not to build their houses on wetlands, but they don't just listen. Because your wetland is like a sponge. When you have so much of water, it absorbs it. Then when you have less of water, it releases it. So during the time of high rainfall or flooding, now there's so much of water. But because the house was built on the wetland, they are going to experience a lot of flooding, which becomes another problem, for the government, which simple knowledge, would have really saved them from those problems. Thank you. I'm not sure if I answered all the questions.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Doctor. I'm just going to check if the panelists have any follow-up questions.
Just one.
There is just one.
Yeah, just one quick one. What we have noticed during our investigation at the Minerals Commission, we realized that most of the dams are full. I'll talk about the DeWalk Dam and the Nandoni Dam where you invest on the land very close. And we still have no water in the villages surrounding those particular dams. What is your view on that one?
Yeah, thank you. I think in my recommendation, I said it would be a good thing that, I mean, from where you're abstracting water, I mean, your priority should be to supply water to the people, you know, that lives within that community than, you know, exporting the water very, very far away. And the people are seeing the water leaves, you know, through the pipe to another village. They're going to burst that pipe. You know, when they burst that pipe, it becomes your problem to fix the pipe. So the money you don't have, you have to spend it twice or thrice on something that if, you know, you have done it properly right from the beginning, you know, you wouldn't have had to go through that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Edepai. Our time with you is now coming to a conclusion. I just want to add, our mic is not working again. I just want to add support to your statements. The projections are 2040, that the whole world is going to be facing incredible water scarcity. In fact, we are projecting water wars in the very near future. I do just want to check in with you as a final note, Doctor, on this issue of aquifers, groundwater. You say we do have an abundance. In fact, the research shows us that we have more water underground than we do in our lakes and in our rivers, but it just hasn't been explored. With your experience, could you tell us what resources we need to begin to then explore the resource that we have underground? Because this speaks back to the opening remarks that I made. Part of the problem is we don't really understand the amount of resources that we have and also just how to manage those resources. So could you maybe speak to that? Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, groundwater is the highest reserve of fresh water in the world. Not only peculiar to South Africa, and it's not so expensive, you know, to deal with. Okay. You know, to deal with groundwater. All you just need is some of these boreholes company, you know, that drills borehole. They just need to drill the borehole very, very deep. You know, they need to drill the borehole very, very deep below the water table. You know, there's a way we can actually, I mean, I have an equipment called ERT, you know, electrical resistivity thermograph. You can use that to actually check, okay, what is the water level, how much of water do we have in this area, how deep do I need to drill my borehole to be able to have an abundance of water. So this science is everywhere. People know about it, just that, yeah, maybe people are not motivated, you know, to do that. Because you can abstract this water from the borehole, store them in the tank, and just do a simple treatment. You don't need all of the treatments we have in the conventional water treatment plants if you want to treat water from the borehole. Because most of the water in the borehole, they have lower levels of E. coli and total coliform due to infiltration. As the water passes through the soil, you know, it traps a lot of those impurities. And that is why people normally would prefer, you know, to drink, you know, a borehole water than a river water. The only problem we can have with groundwater is inorganic contaminant like fluoride. In some areas there could be arsenic, there could be mercury, but I mean just a simple recognizance survey would have shown, what level of these inorganic elements are found in the groundwater. Then when you discover that, oh, they are not much, you can go ahead, pump as much as you want. They are there. If we have rainfall, with rainfall, there's recharge. The groundwater is recharge, so it's a renewable source of water supply. In fact, sometimes in some countries, what they do, during the time of flooding, they directly feed the groundwater. They do artificial recharging. They can have a kind of, maybe like a gutter that channels all the polluted runoffs that is coming into the ground. So it feeds into the ground. Of course, there's natural process of purification. Then from there again, they abstract the water, do minimal treatment, and supply it to the people. So it's very, very possible. It's doable. So I think if the government wants to, pursue that line of action, there are expertise. There are people doing that already in the country. So it's not new. So I think it's something really that would help, because you don't have surface water everywhere, and you spend a lot of money trying to transport. Like now, we want to transport water from Nandoni down to Guyana. You can look at the number of pipes, that you are going to need to do that. The amount of money, and anytime there's problem with the piping system, the people of Guyana are still not going to have water. What if you have groundwater situated just there? You pump the water from there to a reservoir, you treat it there and supply to the people, then it becomes much easier. Mostly in areas where surface water, are not available. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Edokpai. We have now officially come to the end of our time. We again give thanks to you for your time, for your expertise, and for your evidence, passion for this work. Thank you very much for that. We do commit that this is not the last time we're engaging with you. We hope that you will continue to commit yourself to working with us as we try to find solutions to some of these problems that some of them seem so easily solvable with just commitment and effort. And we hope that we could begin as soon as possible in order to protect the human rights of those who live within the boundaries of this country. Thank you very much, Dr. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joshua Edokpai. We are going to link up with Professor Mujuru from the University of Limpopo. Our colleagues are linking us up. I'm sure we'll be able to see him and for him to start the presentation. For Peter, please work on the issue of mics. I think we really have problems with the microphones. Please help us. Please help us with the microphones. Colleagues, are you winning? Are you winning? There is Professor. Can we get the lights switched off so we can be able to engage Professor Mujuru? Good morning, Professor Mujuru.
Good morning.
I think they will work on the speaker. Thank you very much, Professor. You are taking the podium now. We have Commissioner Ntuli and Dr. Elin Carter and our provincial manager, Mr. Mavidula, as the panel. Immediately after your presentation, you will then take a few questions from them so that you are able to clarify where they will need clarity. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you, program organizers to issue of water. There is a saying over water in Limpopo. We are one of the water scarce provinces in the country. Water resources should be managed in a way so that water is available. However, before I continue, I just want to highlight that right now we're still talking about water scarcity and availability, which is one of us right. But very soon our population will also be asking about what type of water has the quality.
Professor Mujuru, kindly pause a bit. We are struggling to hear a little bit and they are quickly fixing the speaker. Stand up.
You guys getting right.
Commissioner, they're trying to take it on the other side so that we can be able to hear all of us.
There's the laptop
Can I request our team to maybe break for tea as they are trying to fix so that they get things done and we are also having tea. And then we can take Professor Mujuri immediately after our tea.
How do they? Because it seems like
Let's take our tea. It's served at the back there. Yeah, so we can do the other angle. Because they